How's it going, fellas? Today we're going to be ranking all 22 mythical labeled Pokemon. The Pokemon that have been historically locked behind events that occur well after a Pokemon game's initial release date. I figured this video would be a solid follow-up to the pseudo-legendary video I did a couple months back. Thanks for the support on that, by the way. I did not expect that video to pop off so hard, but I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Anyways, let's get into the ranking. For the number 22 spot, I'm going to go with Volcanion. I remember when the leaks for this Pokemon were circling around way back in the day, back when the Koro scans were still a big thing. Hearing how we were going to be getting a fire water type Pokemon had me very hyped because that was a type that hadn't been done at this point and still hasn't been done a second time as of the present day. I'm a big fan of when new type combinations get introduced in Pokemon games, so I couldn't wait to see what this thing was going to look like. Then I finally saw him and I just thought, yeah, that's not the best thing in the world, but you know, he gets a passing grade. I don't hate him, but let's be real. I think there's a reason why the Steam Siege trading card set is notorious for being not super great, and that's a set with Volcanion as its main mascot. Maybe this is just a me thing, but it doesn't really give off legendary or mythical vibes, if that makes sense. I feel like this is a Pokemon that could be an Aggron or Gigalith equivalent, minus having the rock typing, of course. At least he's got a cool signature move in Steam Eruption. It does quite a bit of damage, a 30% burn chance, and can unfreeze the user if they're frozen beforehand. Next up is going to be one of the Gen 7 mythicals, Magera. This thing definitely gives off more mythical vibes to me than Volcanion, that's for sure. I feel like if Orianna from League of Legends could own a Pokemon, it would be Magera. Also sporting a very cool typing of Steel Fairy, historically two of the best typings in the game, especially for competitive usage. Though in Magera's case, that's only really for singles since mythicals are typically banned from VGC style tournaments. It's got some pretty cool lore to it as well, about how a scientist created it 500 years ago using a sphere called the Soul Heart, which was made through collecting life energy from other Pokemon. I don't really have much bad to say about it, to be honest. It's just one of those things where every other one on here I just like a bit more or a lot more. Volcanion's the only one where I raise a bit of an eyebrow to. I'm gonna give the number 20 spot to Diancie. I feel pretty similarly to Diancie as I do to Magera. They're both fairy types with pink eyes and similar body shapes, but I do like the rock fairy combo more at the moment solely because it's less common than Steel Fairy at this point, as stupid as that might sound. I'd say the main thing that gives Diancie the edge over Magera for me is it having access to a Mega evolution. There's quite a bit of mythical Pokemon that have more than one form to them that make them look a lot cooler than they do in base in my eyes. Diancie's Mega form really gives this Pokemon the complete royal princess look that it was sort of going for in its base form but wasn't fully embracing. Its signature move Diamond Storm is cool too because it's a 100 BP physical rock move that has a 50% chance to raise defense by one stage. For a Pokemon that has 150 defense in base and 110 in Mega already, that is a very good side perk to have. Numbers 19 and 18 are going to Phione and Manaphy. These two are practically sharing a spot due to the fact that they have extremely similar designs, and the only way a player could even get a Phione prior to Legends Arceus release was pre-owning a Manaphy and breeding it. Phione is cute for sure, but not as cute as Manaphy in my opinion. Plus it's got a worse base stat total with having 80 across the board as opposed to Manaphy's 100. It just feels inferior in almost every way to Manaphy in particular. But what really got me hooked on Manaphy when I was a kid was the Temple of the Sea Pokemon movie. The relationship between Manaphy and May was very wholesome. I have pretty simple taste when it comes to most of these Pokemon designs. If I find it either really adorable or really badass looking, then I smile. Simple as that. They're both cute mons for sure, but can't hold a candle to the other big hitters from Gen 4 in my opinion. Next up are two Pokemon that fit into the adorable and cool category, Meltan and Melmetal, the Hexnut Pokemon. Look at this little guy. The littlest of guys, actually. The other Pokemon that are as small as Meltan are Alolan Diglett and Klefki. I really liked the concept of how one would need to go about getting this Pokemon. That wasn't even an intentional pun, but having to use Pokemon Go to get it was something that was never before done at this point. This all happened during a time where a mainline Pokemon game wasn't even the main focus on the market. The newest games at the time were Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was the first time a mythical Pokemon was available in a remake game of an older Pokemon region before being available in its proper debut generation, which in this case should have been Sun and Moon, but ended up being in Sword and Shield. I know Pokemon like Munchlax and Bonsly made cameos in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, which was technically a Gen 3 game, but those two are baby mons, not legendary or mythical. As for Melmetal, he's the evolved form of Meltan that gets its own Gigantamax form in Gen 8, which is the best design for it in my eyes. And Melmetal was a pretty big staple Pokemon in the Pokemon anime as well, because it ended up being a big part of Ash's main team in Alola. Seeing Ash use a mythical Pokemon as a main team member and not just some one-off in a movie was very cool. Number 15 is going to go to Meloetta of Gen 5. Meloetta was one of those Pokemon that I honestly didn't care for much at all when I first saw it, but as time went on, I began to appreciate it a bit more. It truly embraces the musical inspiration the designers went with. Its cry sounds like someone is actually singing, its hair with the dots inside resembling a music sheet with different notes spread across, and the jewel on the side of its head resembles the treble clef typically seen at the beginning of a music sheet. But it could also be seen as kind of like one of those microphone earpieces that idols would have on their heads when they're performing concerts. All this was incorporated very well into its design to where it doesn't look overwhelming or ugly. Plus, like Diancie, it's got another form where its design changes a bit and it gets a type change from normal psychic to normal fighting, which is accessible through its signature move, Relic Song. Scared of a dark type giving you trouble? Boom. Relic Song to gain the resistance. Next up, we have a mythical Pokemon added after Sun and Moon came out, but before Ultra Sun and Moon did. Marshadow. Marshadow might be one of the few instances where I like its base form more than its alternate form. This alternate form is weird though because it's entirely cosmetic and is activated if Marshadow uses the soul-stealing 7-star strike. Look at him, he's got his own little Super Saiyan form. Before Annihilate, this mon was the only one that had the dual typing of Ghost Fighting, which is an amazing type combination offensively. Even its Dex title is cool. The Gloom Dweller Pokemon, it sounds like you could be one of Ganondorf's right-hand monsters. Just a nice mix of cute and cool. Another Gen 7 mythical that was saved for Ultra Sun and Moon's release, I got Zara Aura at the number 13 spot. Finally, a physical attacking electric type that can use a stab move stronger than Wild Charge. Real talk though, when is Electivire gonna get access to Plasma Fist? I can definitely see why some might not see this Pokemon looking like a mythical the same way Volcanion does to me, but I don't know, I think he can fit the bill. I can't really say much other than he just looks really cool. Like, I feel like this Pokemon's design could be used in a Sonic game or something and it wouldn't look out of place, and that's not a bad thing to me. Though my bias could be higher than it used to be for this Pokemon because it's playable in Pokemon Unite, and that's a game I've put quite a bit of time into, and he was the first mythical added to the game. It's unfortunate he's not very good in the meta right now, but it's definitely a feat if you can pop off with this Pokemon in high elo. For number 12, I have Zarude. This might be considered an even hotter take than having Zara Aura in the top 13, but it really boils down to me liking Dark-type Pokemon so much that I'm basically a shill, and to a lesser extent, Grass types. I mean, hell, Cacturne is in my top 5 favorite Pokemon from the Hoenn, so that should be a pretty big indicator of how much I like dark types. Being quad weak to bug will not make me waver. Monkey Pokemon are some of my more favored designs in Pokemon 2. Except you two, just don't come near me, please. The movie centered around Zarude I liked a lot as well. I really enjoyed the bond between Dada and Coco. Honestly, I might rewatch that movie because it's been a while. Into the upper half of the list, I'm putting Hoopa at number 11. If there's another thing I'm a big fan of in Pokemon, it's ones that are super strong in their lore. Hoopa definitely fits the category with its ability to warp space and send whatever it wants all over the place using the rings it carries. The base form for it is solid enough, but the main reason I'm putting Hoopa this high up is because of the way its Unbound form looks. Changing from Psychic Ghost to Psychic Dark type is very fitting considering how much more monstrous it becomes. Unbound has some pretty cool inspirations to it as well, being inspired by djinns or genies, with all the rings around its arms potentially being inspired by the story of Aladdin. I'm not talking the Disney movie either, I'm talking the folktale from the 1700s. I don't know, genies are just really cool to me. Remember Norm the Genie from Fairly Odd Parents? That was quality content right there. Into the top 10, I have Victini. Want to be a trainer that never loses? Make sure you find one of these little guys. And I mean that literally because its Pokedex entry says that any trainer who has a Victini by their side cannot lose, using infinite energy it stores inside its body to share with its trainer. That's so awesome. Now, I'm a pretty competitive guy myself, so I loved the sound of that. But then when I lost a battle using this Pokemon, I decided to just sell my DS and email Nintendo a complaint for lying to me. For real though, do you think there's anybody out there in the world who read this Pokedex entry and got genuinely hurt if they lost using it when Gen 5 first came out? Because that'd be hilarious if that actually happened to somebody. The whole letter V thing with its name has several meanings to it, which is cool. The V-shaped peace sign, which people like to use when they win something. V for victory, and the Roman numeral for 5 since this Pokemon debuted in the 5th generation. I love you, little buddy. I love you. The number 9 spot goes to Keldeo. As corny as this might sound, I really do like the bit of lore behind Keldeo, with it being separated from its parents, the Swords of Justice taking care of him / training him to the point where he became even stronger than them despite being so much smaller. I've always liked when fictional beings will start off being really weak or looked down upon, then turn into actual monsters when fighting. Probably why the Kung Fu Panda series is my favorite set of DreamWorks movies. Keldeo was already really cool to me in the original Black and White, but it getting the Resolute form in Black and White 2 was a very welcome surprise. Accessible if Keldeo learns its signature move Secret Sword, not to get confused with Sacred Sword. Considering Pokemon Violet got the Paradox Virizion dubbed Iron Leaves, I'm holding out hope that Keldeo and the other Swords of Justice will eventually become available during the Tear Mask or Indigo Disc DLC updates. Number 8 has to go to Celebi, I think, the OG time Pokemon. Dialga's cool and all, but you gotta respect your elders here. I remember the first time I saw Celebi in one of the games was actually when I played Pokemon Coliseum and used a Time Flute to purify one of my Shadow Pokemon. It truly embodied the mythical title. Hearing all those stories about it in the Relic Forest from Egan and other Agate Village residents, then having it actually show up to purify one of my Shadow Pokemon via the Time Flute, my elementary school self was blown away. Part of me wishes my first experience with this Pokemon was in its actual debut Gen 2 games, but at the same time, part of me thinks seeing it in this high-quality 3D motion at the time was also a very great experience. Next up, we have Jirachi, the Wish Pokemon. I know just what to wish for.
I wish to blow up. I mean, like, get big.
If you didn't play Coliseum but wanted Jirachi before Fire Red and Leaf Green, then I am sorry. Unless you live in EU, then have fun playing Pokemon Channel. Besides Celebi and Mew, Jirachi was the other mythical Pokemon I have the most nostalgia attachment to, I think. Even more so because of the Jirachi Wishmaker movie. This movie I don't think is the best Pokemon movie there is, but as a kid, I definitely thought so. It felt like this movie was replayed a lot on Cartoon Network when the Hoenn anime was still ongoing, and I would try to watch it anytime I saw it on, and it just never really got old to me. Max had a similar bond with Jirachi that May had with Manaphy too, but there's in particular just, it hit different, man. I don't know. Jirachi using his telepathy to tell Max they'd be best friends forever toward the end. It's, who put this bowl of onions here? Following Jirachi is another little guy, Shaman and/or Shaman Sky. This Pokemon is still the closest thing we've gotten to Sonic the Hedgehog in the Pokemon series. At least that felt more so the case when the Sky form debuted in Pokemon Platinum. Little 11-year-old me seeing Professor Oak in the Sinnoh region where this Pokemon was located, I couldn't believe it. Those kinds of Easter eggs are just the best, they really are. I had to do a little bit of walking to get there, but, you know, it was worth it. Platinum adding the Sky form just made it even better, and I think most can agree with that as well. Normal 100 stat spread across the board like a lot of the other mythicals, gaining a secondary flying type and the ability Serene Grace over Natural Cure. Enjoy getting stun-locked by my Air Slash for all eternity, you bums. Does it make me a loser if I get enjoyment out of hexing others but get pissed when it happens to me? It probably does. It probably does, to be honest. Now for the top 5 territory, I have Genesect. This Pokemon seemed to serve as the Unova version of Mewtwo, since both these Pokemon were concocted by the respective evil teams of the regions using ancient Pokemon DNA. Granted, we never learned the exact fossil that was used to animate Genesect, but there's been an ongoing theory that Team Plasma used a Kabutops fossil for this process, due to these two Pokemon having very similar builds, and Kabutops, of course, being one of the original fossil Pokemon from Gen 1. Team Plasma clearly went with the more futuristic mechanical approach though, which I can appreciate. This Pokemon having 4 different variants with the disc on its back that can change its signature move Technoblast into normal, electric, fire, ice, or water types. 120 base power move, by the way. Also, there's this. I really wish I could ride on that. I really do. That looks very fun. It's only natural that Mew would be this high at number 4. The OG mythical Pokemon themselves. Containing the genetic code of every Pokemon in the world, can learn every move in the game, is the reason Mewtwo exists. The fight between Mew and Mewtwo is still one of the coolest things to happen in a Pokemon movie. Honestly, that movie as a whole is still in my top 5 Pokemon movies, and Mew is one of the big reasons for that. His design is like completely cute, and it's not really the mixture of the cute and badassness like something like Marshadow, but the way he fights, it just kind of makes him badass even though he doesn't look it. It's very cool. Going from the base form of all Pokemon to the thing that created it and the rest of the universe, Arceus. I remember before I even got this Pokemon for myself, I saw videos of people doing the event for it on YouTube, and I can honestly say that was one of the few times I felt genuinely intimidated by another Pokemon in a game, and I wasn't even the one fighting it. Seeing this guy playing the flute, walking up those flights of stairs as if you're ascending to heaven, only to reach the top and be greeted by God itself. The battle music and Arceus' cry you hear just adding more to that immersion. Definitely got similar vibes when I dealt with it at the end of Legends Arceus 2. That whole fight in particular felt like I was fighting an endgame boss in Kingdom Hearts. Its signature move being called Judgment is really just the icing on the cake here. You are literally feeling the wrath of God's judgment of your sins when getting hit by this move. Depending on the plate it's holding, it can be any type it wants to, which is unfortunate how that might not be unique to Arceus anymore once this little devil becomes available, but we'll see. There's not many Pokemon out there that can hold a candle to Deoxys in terms of coolness factor. a Pokemon that came to be after a space virus was mutated upon being shot by a laser. The first real alien Pokemon. Now, obviously, we've seen the other mythical Pokemon can have a second form that usually makes them look cooler, but Deoxys, this guy's got four. The normal form, the attack form, defense form, and speed form, all of which shifted stats around to match the design's aesthetic. All of them look great too. Defense is probably my least favorite, but I still like it a lot. Destined Deoxys is still my favorite Pokemon movie of all time. Seeing two different Deoxyses fight Rayquaza together, cinema! I can say with total confidence that Darkrai is one of the coldest Pokemon designs ever made. He's been in my top 5 favorites of all time ever since his debut. To me, this is a Pokemon that perfectly encapsulates what a Dark-type Pokemon is, with its entire lore being revolved around giving people terrible nightmares whenever they fall asleep. This is even added into its special event in the Sinnoh games, where you have to visit some kid at Candelave City being tormented by Darkrai's powers. Even its usage in battle is centered around this, having the unique ability of Bad Dreams that deals chip damage to any Pokemon that's already asleep. Sucks how even putting Pokemon to sleep with its signature move Dark Void isn't even ideal anymore though, thanks to this little rat. Why did they have to massacre my boy? Why? Because Smeargle exists, like you kidding me, dude? But at least he can still learn Hypnosis, so he's able to cover for that a little bit. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below who your favorite mythical Pokemon are and why. I would love to see how your favorites differ from mine. And don't be a stranger to hitting that like button down below and subscribing for more content like this in the future. But for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.